John, we're back for another episode of John Cullen's Las Vegas investigation. I said this earlier to David Hawkins, but welcome to Phase 2, John. How are you today?
I am well, thank you. Thank you.
And I don't know.
Excited to be running over fiber optic. I
Exactly.
think it's
This
so
is the
fast. We might,
second
yeah,
week.
we might actually be a second or two in the future here. So,
Exactly. Well, it's very helpful for your show because obviously when we're dealing with people and guests around the world, we want to make sure we have a good connection to them. In addition to the fiber optic, John, I'm on Phase 2 of the studio upgrades here. Totally silent computers, no fans. The only thing making noise in the
wow.
apartment other than me is the refrigerator.
And I cannot hear your refrigerator, Jason, so that's fantastic.
That
It
is
sounds
because of an extremely
utterly silent.
complicated active noise cancellation system that I've also implemented here that I've been working on for several weeks. People have heard the fluttering, the clicking, all these things.
Yeah.
I believe we've eliminated these problems and we're ready for a fantastic show today. And you've assembled some really important research that we're going to get into. I want to remind everybody that on Fridays, John, you and I are doing a sponsor-exclusive show dedicated to your Las Vegas investigation. It's available to sponsors on patreon.com/IamJohnCullen and patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth. You and I both also have Subscribestar channels that people can go to if they don't like Patreon. And we're going to be talking today about a really shocking death that just occurred, I think earlier this week, end of last week, very recently. Phil Haney was a Department of Homeland Security whistleblower, did a lot of investigating with our friend Laura Loomer into Ilhan Omar, into Keith Ellison, and into the jihadi movement that is attempting to infiltrate the United States government through Congress, through attorney general positions. What have you discovered, John?
Well, let's see. I'm looking at a screen right now that looks generic YouTube, so I'm not sure what you're sending to me, but
Sorry, that's just waiting
that's
for
okay.
you to say something to prompt me
Okay.
to remind everyone that if
Okay.
they're not yet subscribed to the John E. Hoover YouTube channel, they should go over there because when we do these YouTube pre-shows, which are not merely advertisements or alerts that the show is happening, we really kick off the show and get into some conversations about related topics. But we've been simulcasting it on the John E. Hoover YouTube channel. We've got people there watching and chatting right now. There is no super chat option on the John E. Hoover YouTube channel because it's not a monetized channel, and that in part is why we've created subscribestar.com/IamJohnCullen and subscribestar.com/crowdsourcethetruth.
Exactly. And forgive me, guys, I don't watch the chat as we do these shows. For me, that I wouldn't be able to focus on what we're here to talk about. So I'm not ignoring your chat. I'm just not even looking at it. So forgive me if I don't respond. But yeah, today we've got a lot to talk about. A week ago today, a gentleman by the name of Phil Haney was shot and killed. And Phil Haney received a gunshot wound to the chest. And one of our viewers sent a note and said, Phil Haney just died. You need to check this out. And I had never heard of Phil Haney. I had no idea who he was. I had no idea what his body of work looked like. And I spent the past week getting to know this guy. And holy moly. This is
He's done a ton of
mind-blowing.
important stuff, right?
Oh my God, this is remarkable stuff. So there's a bunch of catch-up stuff, though, that I also want to talk about before we get into the Phil Haney thing. So we're going to spend the patron hour really getting into his research, what happened, where was he shot. I have photographs of the crime scene. I have photographs of the location where he was shot. I have photographs of his RV. we're going to take a look at that. And I think this is going to be breaking information. Not many people have seen this. So most of that hour from what is it, 5:30 to 6:30 p.m., right? So
Yeah.
most of that hour we're going to be talking about Phil Haney. There's a bunch of connections between Phil Haney's research and the hypothesis that I've put forward to the Las Vegas shooting. So much so that it kind of changes the foundation of the hypothesis. Meaning,
Of your
when
hypothesis.
meaning when I began researching this, to me, the Las Vegas shooting was very much a discrete event. Took place on October 1st.
Like a standalone kind of a thing, you're saying.
Exactly. There was a means, there was a motive, there was opportunity. We kind of put a bow around it and said it appears that these guys had a motive to do it. They had the means, they had the equipment close enough by to do it. And they certainly have the means. They have the means to do anything they want. So we put that together and put a bow around it. And then when I start looking at Phil Haney's research, I realize how much more complex this really is. And that there has had to have been a support fabric in place, a network to make this happen. These guys just don't show up on a Tuesday and pull this off on a Sunday night, right? It doesn't work like that.
So sophisticated military operation, coordinated, lots of logistics.
And possibly that the commandos who pulled off the Las Vegas event are here in country for a year or more, like the shooter in Pensacola, like what we're seeing at these other bases, that now that we're starting to peel into this and look and say, well, wait a second, is this in fact a unique event? Or is this part of a bigger strategy? Mm-hmm. This series, this documentary that I put together, Al Qaeda Over America, I didn't know Phil Haney when I started those videos. So when I made Al Qaeda Over America, I'd never heard of Phil Haney. Then Phil Haney is murdered, it appears. So I'll jump to that conclusion since everybody else jumped to the opposite one, and we'll talk about that in the next hour. But when I made this Al Qaeda Over America series, I never had heard of him. And I find out that he was the Department of Homeland Security's lead investigator, who testified in front of Congress, in front of the Senate, that the information that he had may have led to the prevention of the Orlando shooting and the prevention of the Sacramento shooting, but he had to destroy the evidence that he had. And he testifies to this. And he testifies alongside Andrew McCarthy, who is the prosecutor of the Blind Sheikh. And this is what we're going to look at the 5:30 to 6:30 hour.
Yeah.
And we should also mention, I sent you some footage about this, actually.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we'll be taking a look at that. I mean, we should also mention that Phil Haney was working with Laura. Laura's told us about this explanatory memorandum that was recovered by the FBI in a raid of a terrorist's home, which explains how the Muslim Brotherhood and those intent on building an Islamic caliphate in North America and flying the ISIS flag over the White House plan to infiltrate our society. I mean, it's literally laid out in a PDF document that they plan to infiltrate society, to run for Congress, to run for local political positions like Attorney General in Minnesota. This is happening. This is not some distant, off in the future thing that we're warning people about. This is like underway right now. And Phil Haney, the guy who was
testifying to the Senate. And so Laura, it turns out, has been more right than I think even she realizes. Laura's been like,
well, she said it was ISIS in Las Vegas. Are you feeling like perhaps that was?
Again, what you listen to what these guys say, when you listen to Phil Haney, when you listen to Chris Galbatz, when you listen to Andrew McCarthy, what they're saying is, forget Al Qaeda, ISIS, Muslim Brotherhood. You've got a group of folks that want Sharia. They want Sharia law, and they want to bring Sharia law to America. And
Right.
so, whether they are Al Qaeda or ISIS or the Muslim
Doesn't matter.
Brotherhood, the mission, the mission is kind of the same, and they use not only jihad, and that's the point that they're going to talk about in the testimony that we're going to look about. The jihad is kind of the final thing. That's the bloodiest thing. But as you were just saying, this document lays out all of these subversive methods, such as putting interns into the congressional offices and things of that nature, right?
Wow.
So the things that Laura has been condemned for saying that CARE is potentially connected to Hamas, right? And I don't want to put words in Laura's mouth. So if Laura didn't say that, please forgive me. But I think
she
Laura has
says
said that
CARE is
she doesn't
connected to Muslim
necessarily.
Brotherhood.
Okay, so close enough, right? So I think what this trial is bearing out is that it appears Laura's right. It appears that she's absolutely correct. And so, and this is based on this guy's research. So where Laura's kind of delivering the message, this is kind of the guy where if you want to know how to build the watch, Laura just told you what time it is. This guy's going to tell you how to build the watch. This was the guy in Department of Homeland Security that was tracking them. This is how we were tracking them. But the challenge is we're dealing with an enemy here that doesn't respect the rules of the Geneva Convention, doesn't respect the rules of
well, it's not even a sovereign state. We're not fighting a nation. It's an amorphous group.
Correct. And so because of that, our war fighters do follow these doctrines and do have to adhere to the Geneva Convention and things like that. And what that means is we won't bomb schools, supposedly, and we won't bomb hospitals, right? That's part of what you can't do that, right? But what these guys do is they hide out in hospitals and they hide out in schools and they hide out in, the basements or back rooms of mosques, potentially, in different parts of the world. And what I learned from Phil Haney is that there's so much more than just these big names like ISIS and Al Qaeda and the Muslim Brotherhood. It gets into things like the Diobandes and the Tablighi Jamaat. And I'd never heard of the Diobandes, and I never heard of the Tablighi Jamaat. Well, those big. So Tablighi Jamaat is massive, and it is like the Southeast Asia and India. Tablighi Jamaat is basically the organization that was responsible for what happened in Sri Lanka, right? And I featured the Sri Lanka bombing in one of my recent videos. So the bombing in Sri Lanka was devastating and was a massively coordinated attack. The wife of one of the bombers blew herself up when the police arrived at the house, killed her kids. Really just gruesome stuff. Yeah, really gruesome stuff. And so this is Tablighi Jamaat. And Phil Haney talks about this. And so the education that I've received in the last week from this guy who was killed a week ago today is just remarkable. And so we have a presentation prepared for the bottom of the hour that is just outrageous. So I'm looking forward to today's show.
As am I.
And we're also going to be showing photographs of the crime scene where Phil was murdered. We're going to be showing photographs of his RV that he left at the RV park. And we're going to see that. Yeah, that's the annual congregation. And one of the things that these guys do is these really large-scale weddings. And that's, I think this is a precursor to one of those. So this is an example of a Tablighi Jamaat meeting. And so these organizations are organizations that our news media doesn't really talk about.
Right.
So we're not really aware of them. But in other parts of the world, they are aware of them. So there is similar terrorism happening in India, right? There's similar terrorism happening in Sri Lanka. There's similar terrorism happening in Indonesia. But it's different organizations, it's different factions. but this desire for Sharia law seems to be the common thread.
Hmm.
And the part that I don't understand is, if you want Sharia law, go live in Saudi Arabia. They have Sharia law. But what's wrong with that?
Right. Well, maybe it's not a matter of wanting
So
Sharia
and
law. It's
there's
a matter of wanting to destroy the United States, which seems to be something else that unites some of these people.
well, the United States foreign policy alienates these guys. These are old school people. We show up with all of our gear to fight in these wars, and it alienates them. I understand that aspect. It's what was it that Chris Rock said about O.J. Simpson and Nicole and Ron
Yeah,
Goldman? I'm not saying he should have killed his wife, but I understand. I mean,
right.
I understand how these people feel. Our foreign policy sometimes sucks, but the way that they respond is completely not okay. So I'm empathetic to understanding and listening. It's the reaction and the response that's completely unacceptable that we draw the line at.
Right.
So it's not the religion. I have no issue with any religion on the planet. It's violence. It's, any type of violence in the name of anything. Anything where somebody gets killed in the name of blank, and I'm not okay with that unless it's justice. If it's justice, then we can talk.
Yeah. All right, John. Well, we're just about out of time here on YouTube and Periscope and Facebook and DLive and all the other platforms, but we're going to have the full show available to our sponsors, and people who want to join us can go right now either to Subscribestar or Patreon /I am John Cullen and /crowdsource the truth. The show will begin there at 5:30 p.m. Eastern, just about 10 minutes from now. So everybody's got some time to make their way over to Patreon and Subscribestar. This is going to be a fascinating show. I'm sure we're going to learn a lot. And it's really intriguing to hear that Phil Haney's work ties into what you've been researching for the past 2 years and even expands your knowledge of what may have happened in Las Vegas. So we'll see everybody over there, John. Really looking forward to it.
Same here. Thank you.
See everybody there. Thanks for watching.